Okay, so I've taken the hood off of the hinges. Hood's out there in the yard. Everything's pulled out of the garage. Engine crane is in place. This thing is so light with no top end on it that I have to have somebody stand on the brakes because I can actually spin the wheel with all the weight on the front. I took it down off the jack stands and it just spins the tires. So I'm gonna have to get some help. Someone come out and stand on the brake while I break loose the nuts. I'm gonna go ahead and pull the axles completely out, clean them up, see if I need replacing them. Just, I believe it's six or eight bolts into the the actual output shafts on the case. So there's not really a shaft, it's more of a mating surface, and the inner CV is just greased. But break these nuts free first, because it's got to get done, and then go from there. But we're ready to pull this engine transmission. More than likely, the way I'm going to do it is I'm not going to pull it up and out, although I may. I've got the room. I may drop it straight down and just hold the hoist here so I can disconnect all the bolts that I have to disconnect. There's a motor mount here, there's a transmission mount there, stabilizer here, and then there's a mount in the rear just underneath the exhaust. Alright, so I had to run all over town to find these, but they are triple squares. It's like a hex bit times 2, and I had to go all over town to get them. So basically just wasted an hour and 15 minutes driving all over our local area trying to find them. Nobody had them except for CarQuest. Alright, so as you can see, the sun's set. Everything's ready to drop except that this motor mount, the through bolt, is basically spinning in the bushing. It's fused. So the actual motor mount is completely disintegrated. I went ahead and cut this side out over here. This side is just, the nub of the bolt is right there. It wants to see it moving. It's completely unthreaded. So this motor mount needs to be replaced, obviously. But everything's ready to go. You see that side dropped. Everything's unbolted and ready to drop. Worst case scenario, I drop it a little bit, raise the car a little bit, drop it a little bit more, raise the car some more. But it's right there. Now we're getting there. We're getting there. Everything's cleared and ready to go. As you can see, I had to bust out the Sawzall. Alright, so I just took the pry bar and I just pried this way and it popped right out. And then just lowered it just now. I thought about this too late. I wasn't gonna tell me too late. I would have put it too high. I think right now the way it is, there's just enough frame clearance. I don't think I can pull it out the front. I would have to raise the car up a couple more inches, which I can always do. It's not that big a deal. But you can see what I was talking about here. That guy's stuck in there. I gotta knock him out, knock him through. I'm gonna have to take an air hammer to it, but we'll get that out. Anyways, I think if I pull this wheel off, I should be able to slide the engine right out. The timing cover, the metal inner bracket guy, is just, see it poking through. That should be able to give us clearance once I move this wheel. Alright, there's the engine and transmission. Pretty crusty. Pretty crusty. So the idea today is just to clean up parts, separate the engine and transmission, and then just kind of clean stuff up, degrease. Eventually we'll get to degreasing the engine bay, but for now it's just going to work as a storage compartment for other things. So clean the garage up a bit, at least organize it a bit, move some stuff around. So yeah, I need to find a place for that chop saw and build a little workbench right there to put the transmission on so I can start rebuilding the trains. But yeah, let's have a pathway to get in and out of the garage without running into stuff. So, but yeah, let's get this thing separated and cleaned up. Alright, so that was rather easy. There's 1, 2, I believe 3 starter bolts that hold the starter into the back of the block. Once those are removed, and you remove a 4th bolt that's holding a bracket on the starter, this bracket right here. This is slapped up into this area right here, and that bolt is in one of those 2 locations. Once you remove that, starter comes right out, super easy. That exposes the flywheel junction port or place where the starter is, exposes the 3 flywheel bolts that hold the torque converter to the, well, I guess this isn't a flywheel, it's considered a flex plate. So once you unbolt those 3, the whole case just slides apart. I want to say there's 4 bolts or 5 bolts holding this this block to the transmission. There's one here, one there, one there, and then one down at the bottom. And I'm sorry, one on the back. I think, yeah, there's 6. And then you got the 3 starter bolts that hold the starter in, and then that 1 bolt on the back of the block for the bracket on the starter. Once all that's out and you expose this little area, you can take and push down on the torque converter, right? And it will in turn rotate the flywheel, and you can line up your bolts to back them out. Those are a 12.10. This is a 6.10. Luckily I had a 12.10 for the heads on these torque converter to flex plate bolts. Like I said, only 3 of them. Rotate them. If you go to, you know, push down on your wrench and it wants to rotate the whole assembly, take a breaker bar, in this case it's a long handled pry bar, put it through here, and there's these vanes on the back. Just stop it from rotating, and then you're good to go. The AC compressor and the alternator bracket has to come out. The problem is this bolt right here is stripped. If you can see that, it's completely rounded out right there. So I gotta find a way to get that out. That's not gonna be any fun, but I need this bracket. So I gotta measure this bolt, get a replacement bolt for that. Let's give this guy a spin. Get that piston number 1, the top dead center. You can see just how bad that spark plug electrode damaged that. I think there's actually a chunk of piston missing there. It is. That would explain my low compression readings. That's why I decided to do all this. When I first got the motor, I did some compression readings, and number 1 was reading very low. So that explains that. I bet the rings are chewed up too. Alright, that was 1 and 4. Let's get 2 and 3 up top here. Well, those don't look terrible. I'm not planning on breaking the engine down just because I don't want to waste the time. So yeah, I'll salvage some stuff off of this. Obviously the flex plate on one side. Probably the oil boss here for the oil system. Salvage that, salvage this bracket, this motor mount, and then you see this is an inner and outer sleeve here. I'm gonna have to press this inner one out. So it's a good thing I got the shot press here. That'll come in handy. Alright, so next order of business is to pull this torque converter out without making too much of a mess. And I want to get these things, well, I gotta get this motor out of here. So I'll probably take that to the salvage yard after I strip these parts off of it. And, oh, don't want to forget this plate, mounting plate between the two. I'll get all that set and salvage my parts off the block and then take that to the salvage yard.